Greetings. I would like to share another story with you. As a matter of fact, if you go back to my first video where I was sharing my life story, where I start from the time I left school, okay, you would realize I'm trying to teach you a very valuable lesson, okay, because in that first episode where I was sharing with you my experience when I left school, it is the same thing that you would experience when you left school also. And if you're an adult, you would have already have that experience, but you can now share it with your children. So what I learned late, I can pass on to my children, and you can do the same. So what you learn late, you teach them early. Okay? So when I share my experience with you when I left school and what the outcome was, I just gonna pick up from there and continue. Okay? Now, you remember I mentioned that my first job was working in the post office as a postman. Okay? Well, I want to share a certain experience with you while I was working at the post office. You see, because I was not well informed in school about who I am and the power that I possess, there was a lot of things that was lacking in my life. And one of them is financial literacy. You see, money doesn't, school, I mean, never teaches you anything about money. Okay, so when you leave school, you have no financial literacy at all. Okay, and so when I enter the post office as a worker, one of my co-workers who grew up in the same village with me, we were good friends. He was the one who told me that there's something called credit union. I didn't know that there was such a thing called a credit union. And he told me that you can get 5 times the amount you have in credit union to borrow. At that time, because I had, a mindset of lack and scarcity, and I grew up in a society where people didn't have any teaching or knowledge about money and how money really works, I asked him to repeat himself about 2 or 3 times. I couldn't believe what he was saying to me. So I said to him, you mean that if I have $100 in the credit union, I can borrow $500? He said, yes, that is so. And so I swallowed the bait, not knowing that I was going to cultivate a mindset of a creditor. Now, I'm not saying that you mustn't use the credit union. I'm not saying that you mustn't use the bank. I'm just sharing my experience with you, okay? Because you see, when you understand that all is mind, and you understand how the mind works, then you will understand the life lesson that I'm sharing with you. Now, if we were to look at the credit union, before it was ever set up, then you would realize it was first a thought, it was first an idea, it was first imagined in someone's mind. So the credit union didn't start with money, it started as an idea. The same thing with the bank. The bank didn't start from money, it started from an idea. Money itself, it was an idea in someone's mind. That's why they have to print it. It have no intrinsic value of its own. You have the real value. So your thoughts, they are currency. They are vibrational currency. But of course, you have to understand energy, vibration, and frequency. And at that time, with me working in the post office, I had no such knowledge of energy, vibration, and frequency, and I had no knowledge about money as energy and how money really works. So I got caught up in the credit union, and so I would have built a creditor's mindset because everyone who was working in the post office was doing the same thing. So I was following the follower. And that is what most people do. For example, if you was to ask most people why they go to work, they do not know why they go to work. They're just doing it because they see everybody doing it. Okay, they would have conformed. But when you understand how the mind works, then you will realize why I am sharing my experience with you. And so to cut a long story short, my co-workers at the post office, they used to always know when the bank is lending a loan. Whether it's a $3,000 loan, $5,000 loan, $1,000 loan, and so on. And so it was a whole community of borrowers, just borrowing. And so I've come to realize that I was in a union of creditors. So it's credit union. And so because I was always observant, I used to always look at the men and women who always was on the board of credit unions and these corporations and so on. Like for example, when the post office turned to a corporation, they had a board, and I gave them hell because they didn't really employ me. They were supposed to change, when they changed from government to corporation, they were supposed to pay off all the workers and then re-employ whoever they feel they want to re-employ, and they never do that. And then I know my rights, so I do as I please. And I tell them I'll do as I please on the job because they never employ me and they can't change my job description. You see, because you see, I'm not a person who could be bought a soul. I've always had that kind of mindset. Okay. And so many of them, they couldn't do that because they were trapped in loans and mortgages and so on. And though I had loans and so on too, with like the credit union and so on, I wasn't afraid. Okay. And so when they finally called me at the post office and decided to, you know, pay me off for the years I've been there working for, the money I had for the credit union, my savings at the credit union could have pay off my debt. Okay. So my brother and my sisters, what is the lesson I'm trying to teach you? I'm trying to teach you that the borrower is a slave to the lender. Let me repeat that again. The borrower is a slave to the lender. Well, you might ask yourself, well, how am I going to own anything if I do not borrow? Well, the good news is that you have a power in you. And you can use that power to achieve your every desire. Let me give you an example. Everyone is using electricity. Everyone is using the telephone. Everyone is using, well, not everyone, well, yes, everyone is actually using the automobile, whether they own it or they take in the public transport. Okay? But all these inventions, there is an inventor behind these inventions. Well, how did these inventors come to invent these things? Well, they discover within themselves is a power. And you can transmute the power to give you every desire. That power is mind power. It's energetic power. So, as long as you learn and master the secret of the universe, you will never be in want, because you will realize that the universe is built on energy, vibration, and frequency. And you are a vibratory being. Okay? Because your true essence is that you are a mass of energy. So you are visible and you are invisible. Okay? This is the visible self. And this is not the real you. Okay? This is just a projection. Okay? It's like this body is like a house. Okay? But the spirit that lives in this house is limitless. The spirit that lives in this house is omnipotent and omniscient and omnipresent. But what they do, they make you believe that there's an omnipresent and an omnipotent and an omniscient being outside of yourself. When it is a power, it's a universal power that is in you. But you have to discover that power. And how are you going to discover that power? When you have a burning desire, you have to go within and act out that burning desire. And it will become a hard and objective fact. And that is how you prove for yourself that thoughts become things. That is how you prove for yourself that all is mental. We're living in a mental construct. That is how you come to realize that everything you're seeing around you is just a projection. It's an illusion. Don't think that it is solid and real. Okay? Learn to understand that what is shaping your life is the way you go to bed every night and the way you awake. So in your formative years, you were programmed. You were programmed with certain belief. So they make sure they set up system to shape your belief system, which is a way to rob you of your mental faculties, okay, that you're born in this world with. Because you're born with your will and your perception, okay? You're born with your reasoning, okay? You're born with your intuition. It was your intuition that tells you that it was time for you to come out of your mother's womb to have this human experience. So your mother had birth pains. It's the same thing with a chicken. The intelligence in the chicken is what tells the chicken to pick itself out of the shell of the egg. Well, this is the same intelligence I'm saying that you must activate within yourself so you wouldn't have the mindset of a creditor. Okay? So most people, the only advice they could give you is tell you to borrow loan from the credit union or borrow loans from the bank and make you become a creditor. But I'm saying to you that you have a power in you that can help you to buy land without you borrowing from the bank or the credit union. You have a power in you that can help you to purchase an automobile without borrowing from the bank or the credit union. So, if you would like to know more about what I'm speaking about, you can definitely book a one-on-one with me. The link is down below, or you can get my books. They're all available on Amazon. Okay? And you can read those books and they will help you how never to become a creditor, okay? And how to shape your mind in a certain way that money will become your servant. Okay? You will be the master and the money would be your servant. You're not the servant of money, okay? So you don't need to chase money or chase the things that the rest of society is chasing. Okay, that's why many people end up and they live the rest of their life going to a job that they do not love because they have loans and they have mortgages with the credit union, with the banks. Okay? But you can become a money machine, and I would like to teach you how. You see, once you're willing to unlearn and relearn and reprogram your subconscious mind, you will discover a lot of things about yourself, and all of the potential that you have in you lying dormant, you'll be able to activate them. Okay, so my last encouragement to you is to make sure that you check out the links that are in my description, and it will help you if you are willing to invest in yourself. Also, if this is the very first time you have found my videos and what I'm saying, if it resonates with you and is helping you in any way, I'll definitely encourage you to like, to subscribe, or you can share this video. Okay. Also, if you'd like to become a part of my Patreon community, you're most welcome. And on my Patreon, I have a course that is called the Inner Sun Science and Technology to Create Your Reality Consciously. And along with that is a bonus course on self-concept. But the choice is yours. So, my last encouragement to you is to check out all of the links that are down below and let your intuition definitely lead you and guide you into what to do. So with that being said, I just want to say peace. Love you all. I'm